علمنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما رب العالمين. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. أما بعد. Last time we started going through ibnalqayyim's enumeration of the harms of ishq. So ishq, right, if you remember, would be this obsessive, mad type of love that consumes the individual until it's the thing that the person is thinking about, the only thing that they care about, the only thing that they want. So it's very obsessive, very consuming. That's what ishq is. So Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah is saying that we're going to talk about some of the harms that are in it, even though the harms are much, much more than what we're going to be talking about. And he said, if you remember in the beginning, that the problem with ishq is that it corrupts the heart itself. Right? That it attacks the heart in the most valued thing that the heart has, which is its relationship with whom? With Allah Azza wa Jal. So it attacks the heart at the very core of the heart and alienates the hearts from Allah Azza wa Jal, distracting it by loving somebody else in place of Allah Azza wa Jal. And he described that the ishq can be a form of kufr, a form of shirk in Allah Azza wa Jal, right? When it reaches that level. It could inhabit lower levels, but at that high level, it could be what? Shirk and kufr. Now he says the sixth harm here, that it corrupts and damages the mind. So it's not only does it corrupt the heart, it says it corrupts and damages the mind, and he will say shortly after, and it damages the senses as well, and it damages the body. Meaning it does not leave anything behind. So he says, how does it damage the mind? He says, because if it takes a strong hold within the heart and controls it, the mind starts to suffer. It'll be under pressure. And so the person starts to lose their mind. Right? They start to lose their grasp on reality. And then they'll admit into themselves al-waswas, the whispers. So if you want to kind of understand this a little bit better and relate to it a little bit better, consider someone who had lost someone that is very dear to them, especially a child or so, or anything in life that is very dear to them, and they could not process it. And because of it, they started to lose their mind. You're aware of that? That could happen? So why does that happen? Wallahu a'lam, right? We could only superficially describe it and talk about it, but there's a lot of pressure on the mind. So there's a lot of emotional pressure, right? You don't know how to deal with it. And it keeps attacking you and overwhelming you and attacking you and overwhelming you. And the person, something happens there in the brain. And the person starts accepting these whispers. Maybe they are not dead. Maybe they're around. Maybe I could talk to them. Maybe I did something wrong. So all of these whispers work on the brain until the brain cannot handle it anymore. So it loses its grasp on reality. Right? So if that is true in the case of sadness, it could be also true in the case of excessive love. That the person starts saying, because he can't handle, she cannot handle that type of love and longing and separation, they also admit into their minds whispers. Maybe my beloved is next to me. Maybe my beloved is there. Maybe I can talk to them. Maybe one day, maybe this, maybe that. And these whispers, if they work their way in the mind, they damage it. So a person has to be careful with these whispers, not to entertain them. I mean, overall, any whispers. Something that is damaging, something that is not real, you don't want to entertain it. You don't want it to lead you. You want to lead it, you want to stop it. So it says it damages the brain. قال وربما ألحق صاحبه بالمجانين الذين فسدت عقولهم فلا ينتفعون بها. So it could make a person insane. So he cannot even use or benefit with his brain or by his brain. And he says the stories of the ushaq, those who are afflicted with that type of love, is widespread and testify to that they could lose their brains. And he says something that he had said before. He says, what distinguishes you from an animal is the brain that Allah Azza wa Jalla had given you. So an animal has let's call it some sort of brain. They understand some harm, some benefit, but it's not a high order thinking, right? Allah Azza wa Jalla had given you something that is extra special, which is that brain, that is mind. And if you lose it, you become worse than an animal. You don't really know your benefit anymore. An animal would continue, unless they are diseased physically, they'll continue to know good from bad, what harms them, what benefits them. But he says, if you lose your mind, you'll be worse than an animal. He says, and is there anything other than that type of insanity or that type of love that took away the Majnoon Layla? The poet who is described as the crazy one of Layla, or who is crazed over Layla. He is described as Majnoon, in the sense, lost his mind over Layla. That's the only thing he could talk about. And that type of love, if you think about it, is not a type of love that you want to have, right? Because it's romanticized. You know, if you look at all the movies, and the movies are based on poetry or novels or fiction or some history, but when you romanticize that type of love, some people will start thinking, I want that type of love in my life, that insane love, love that I could live for and die for. I want that because it's so beautiful, so attractive. But the thing is that you're inviting insanity, inviting obsession, you're inviting a disease. This is not such love that you should crave and want. Yes, you should want love in your life, but moderate type of love. Not a love that is going to drive you insane and make you very miserable, as ibnalqayyim rahimahullah will say soon. قال بخالو كما قيل, and these two verses of poetry we relate before, because he brought them before. قالوا جننت بمن تهوى فقلت لهم العشق أعظم مما بالمجانين. They said, you've gone crazy after the one that you love. I said, ishq is greater than madness. They told him, because trying to blame him or wake him up, he says, you've gone crazy because of that love. He says, no, in fact, ishq is worse than madness. العشق لا يستفيق الدهر صاحبه وإنما يسرع المجنون في الحين. He says, when you are experiencing ishq, you never wake up from it. Whereas those who lose their mind, they experience bouts of insanity, periods of insanity, but then periods of clearness, clear-headedness, meaning that they're not always out of their minds. Sometimes, and sometimes not. You could sense some clarity in them, where he is saying that the person who experiences ishq is continuously intoxicated, continuously suffering, continuously insane. Then he said, فَإِنَّهُ رُبَّمَا أَفْسَدَ الْحَوَاسِ. Now he comes to the senses, your eyes, your ears, or whatever, your perceptions. And he says also corrupts it. And he says it corrupts it in two ways. فَسَادٌ مَعْنَوِي وَفَسَادٌ مَادِّي. فَسَادٌ مَعْنَوِي, non-physical ways. It will corrupt it in non-physical ways, but also will corrupt it in physical ways. What does he mean that it will corrupt it in non-physical ways? He says, if you corrupt the heart, and by the way, this should be kind of a truism by now. If you corrupt the heart, everything else is corrupted, right? So he says, if you corrupt the heart, the eye will be corrupt, the tongue will be corrupt, and you will see what is ugly as beautiful and what beautiful as ugly, based on the inclinations of the heart. Right? He says that's how it is, the non-physical corruption of the heart. قال كما في المسند مرفوعة. This is a weak hadith, so it's not an authentic hadith, wallahu a'lam, but it's a wide, well-known saying. And you'll recognize an English equivalent of it. That saying is, حُبُّكَ الشَّيْءَ يُعْمِي وَيُصِمْ. You loving something deafens and blinds. And it makes you like a blind, deaf person. What is the English equivalent to it? That's very common. Love is blind. Love is blind. Okay? So what do they say love is blind? Because when you love something, you can't see its faults. By the way, it's not just about humans. Like, you know how people form parties? And we like to polarize for whatever, phones, right? iPhones or Androids, right? You go to sports, this team or the opposite team, rivalries. Whatever you love or whatever you hate. If you love it, you can't see its shortcomings. And if you hate it or hate him, you cannot see the good things that are in him. So that's how it's blind. So حُبُّكَ شَيْءً, when you love something, it really strips you from the ability to see clearly or even hear clearly. Hear clearly anything about them. So if someone comes and says, as he says here, if someone comes and criticizes your love for that one and points out its faults, you will not listen to it. It's as if you've heard nothing. You shouldn't be in love with so-and-so. It is terrible for you. It's not doing you any good. You can't hear it. So this is like a deaf person. What made that person deaf? It's that type of love. So again, you don't want to have this love control what you see and control what you hear. You want to be in control, not to be taken control of. Right? Qala, and this is the following is beautiful, again in explaining human nature. And the beauty of ibnalqayyim, and I hope that you've noticed it by now, is that he does talk about something, but then he talks about you as being human. And that how it relates to your nature, how it relates to your fitrah, how it relates to how you are as a human. So he said here, وَالرَّغَبَاتُ تَسْتُرُ الْعُيُوبِ. He says, desires veil shortcomings and mistakes. If you want something, it will veil its shortcomings. فالراغب في الشيء لا يرى عيوبه حتى إذا زالت رغبته فيه أبصر عيوبه. It says, because when you want something, especially intensely, you're not going to see its mistakes. But when that desire is removed, you start seeing the mistakes in that thing. When you no longer want it, you will start seeing the mistakes over there. So it's like a veil. كما قيل, as the poet had said, هويتك إذ عيني عليها غشاوة فلما انجلت قطعت نفسي ألومها. He says, I've desired you while there was a veil covering my eyes. فلما انجلت, but when the veil was removed, I tore myself up in blame. Why did I want you? This is when you find somebody who is madly in love. I love him and that's the only thing I want in this world. I have to marry him. I want to be with him. Like a torrid love stories, right? I have to marry her and I don't care what anybody says. And they get married. And then after a month or two or a year, they divorce and they split. So what is it that you've discovered that you didn't see before, that people may have warned you about, but you did not want to listen? You've discovered reality. But what was the problem before? The problem before is that you had a desire, you had an image in your head that was not based on reality, but you filled in what you wanted to see in that person. Oh, when I marry her, it's going to be this beautiful. Are we going to go there and we're going to do that? And when I marry him, he's going to be everything that I wanted, unlike my father, unlike my brothers, unlike my family. So you fill in the missing parts that are all basically your own imaginations and projections, not real. And when you marry them, you say, or him or her, you discover, oh, he doesn't have this, he doesn't have that. He's not as loving, not as patient, and it's not that it is their fault or her fault, but you created a standard that nobody can live up to. So you come crashing. You follow what I'm saying? Like you've created a standard, something that no man can fulfill. Especially if you've lived on Hollywood and Bollywood and all of these songs and what. If you've lived on it, you created a standard no one can live up to. So when you discover reality, what do you say? It's not good enough. She's not good enough. He's not good enough. But nobody could live up to it. قال, and this is also really nice and really important. قال والداخل في الشيء لا يرى عيوبه والخارج منه الذي لم يدخل فيه لا يرى عيوبه ولا يرى عيوبه إلا من دخل فيه ثم خرج منه. He says if you are an outsider to a thing, meaning you don't know about it, you can't see its blemishes and mistakes because you're outside. Right? Meaning especially if there's a distance. Like you could be an outsider to something but recognize some of its mistakes. And you don't have to have taken drugs to understand what's wrong with drugs, right? But if you're very far, you don't know, you haven't studied, you haven't read, you haven't observed, you wouldn't understand that there are problems with drugs because you're an outsider. قال والداخل فيه لا يرى عيوبه. And the one who's inside, engrossed in, still attracted to it, does not see its mistakes because you're in it. That's the only thing that you know. And you crave it, you want it, you desire, so you cannot see its mistakes. So he says the outsider cannot, a sad outsider with a distance. The insider who is still interested in it cannot see its mistakes. He says the only one who can see its mistakes is the one who was inside and left. Then you see its mistakes. Then you really understand it. قال ولهذا, and for that reason, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum who entered Islam after they experienced Jahiliyyah were better than those who were born as Muslims. And Umar ibn al-Khattab said, قال إنما تنتقض عرى الإسلام عروة عروة إذا ولد في الإسلام من لا يعرف الجاهلية. He says the knots of Islam will be undone one by one when you have people who are born as Muslims who do not understand Jahiliyyah. And that is a very profound statement. This is a paraphrasing of what Umar radiallahu anhu has said, but this is a very profound statement. And then when you understand it, you understand maybe perhaps what he's asking you to do. Right? So ibnalqayyim is saying here emphatically, he says one reason at least that the Sahaba were better than the Tabi'un was that the Sahaba experienced what? Jahiliyyah. And became Muslims. The Tabi'un and the one who came after and after did not experience that Jahiliyyah. So why is the experience of Jahiliyyah, and I'm going to tell you how this can relate to us, but why is the experience of Jahiliyyah so vital? You think about it. Why was the experience of Jahiliyyah so vital? We can see the flaws. Right? So first, because you've lived it. You've lived it. So you know its burden, its harm, how destructive it is. You know it firsthand. Right? So first, you would hate it the most, especially when you leave it. You would hate it the most because you remember what it did to you. You remember what it did to your family. You remember, like somebody who was addicted to drugs and Allah saved him from it. And when he remembers, he would hate drugs the most. He'd be the strongest advocate against drugs if he's saved from it. Why? Because he remembers what it did to him or to his brother or to his family. So then their hatred, how repulsive Jahiliyyah was to them, was greatest because they know, they lived it. That's one. And the brother said also you understand its flaws, its mistakes, and also how it can creep into Islam. So you will safeguard Islam the most because you understand, once it wants to come in, you say, no, this is the Jahiliyyah that I know. No, that's the other Jahiliyyah this is what we used to do. This is what we used to say. Protect Islam. No, so they kept Islam clean and pure because they understood Jahiliyyah very well. Whereas generations that would come after, if you don't know what Jahiliyyah is, you'd say, what's wrong with this? That's fine. This could, mix with Islam. That could mix with Islam. And you don't understand how destructive it is because you don't understand what that Jahiliyyah is. Right? And so, how does this relate to you? You say, if we don't have people today who to some degree know Jahiliyyah, we're going to mix the two together. Right? Jahiliyyah in all of its kinds, all of its forms. So, once Allah Azza wa Jal blesses you with knowing the foundations and to be strong enough in your Islam, it's really not a bad idea if you're up to it and you have the foundations to learn about some aspects of Jahiliyyah, not to go in them. It's very different. Not to be tempted by it. We're not going to send you there. If we send you there, we're going to lose you. Right? But to study it. To study it. To understand it. So that if we're ever to come and infect any part of Islam or Muslims, you'll say, no, this is coming from there. You shouldn't. Right? So I'll give you an example, and it's not really that I want to open up this thing, but I'll just an example. It's about democracy and what have you. So think about Muslims who are living in Muslim countries. And a lot of them are living under authoritarian, despotic rule. They can't breathe. Right? They can't speak. They can't say anything. And from afar, democracy looks like what? Freedom. I mean, they may say, yeah, it's not ideal, but I have recourse. I have a way to challenge these laws, change these laws, elect these people, hold them accountable. At least I can say and not be afraid. I can speak out and not be afraid. This is much, much better than what I have over here. And for some, yes, it is. I'm not here saying that democracy doesn't have its flaws. I want you to understand. I'm saying for a lot of people who are under that despotic rule, transitioning to this would be a step up. So for a lot, they will look at it and they will say, well, that's what we want. That's our hope. That's our objectives. What do we want? We want democratic rule. We want parties. We want elections. We want this. Because why? To all of them, this is what? That's hope. That is freedom. That's liberation. Okay. You who is living in a non-Muslim country, under democracy, okay? You can see what they cannot see, right? You have experienced what they have not experienced. You can listen to what it's hard for them to listen to. And you can understand that as there are some advantages to democracy, there are some, what? Disadvantages. That it can do some things right, but it also can do some things very wrong. That you could hear people who are living under democratic rules, who are saying, we no longer believe in voting. They're not against it, but they don't believe that it works anymore. We no longer believe in democracy. We no longer believe that capitalism and democracy are compatible. You either have this or you have that. These are things that people in the Muslim world, unless they are educated, tech savvy, they're not going to hear. They're not going to know. But who can know it? You. Because you're living here. And your ear is very close to what is happening. So then it becomes really, if you think about it, your obligation, if you choose to accept that, your obligation to educate yourself on this so that you can educate others. Because you're in it. And that's unlike somebody who is outside who cannot see what you see. That is just an example that I'm giving. But it can be widespread to include anything else. Anything else. So that when we critique some aspects of jahiliyyah, we're critiquing it based on knowledge. So, the music industry. I don't want you to go and listen to music, but critique the music industry for me. Based on some analysis. How is music made? Who controls it? Who controls these words? Who distributes all of these things? Why? Who gets the profit? If you know, your critique will be sharper. Entertainment, sports, all of these things. So that you'll understand, once you see Muslims adopting some of these things, you'll say stop. And you can smell it a mile away because you know what other people do not know. I hope what I'm trying to communicate kind of got through. So here is what he is saying. He says we must have people who know some of that jahiliyyah so they could stop it, so they could critique it, so they could warn people about it. قال وأما, we're going back to the corruption of the senses. He says the corruption of the senses, he says non-physical and physical. He says the physical, it exhausts the body. That if a person is under that type of pressure, love-stricken, it says it will exhaust the body, and exhausting the body could ruin it, as it is well known about those who had been killed because they've loved so much. قال وقد رفع إلى ابن عباس. He here recounts an incident. Allahu a'lam if it is authentic all the way to Ibn Abbas or not, but the fact that this happens is true. So he says, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, while he was in Arafah, meaning Hajj, he was brought a person who had grown very ill, very slender, very thin because of that love. He says, jildun ala adm, skin on bones. Alright? فقال ما شأن هذا. He says, what is wrong with this man? He says he has ishq, he had loved someone and it's killing him. قال فجعل ابن عباس يستعيذ بالله من العشق عامة يومه. So Ibn Abbas continued to seek Allah's protection from ishq for the rest of that day. He says, because this thing is killing that man and that man cannot stop it. And subhanAllah, if we were to take him to the doctor, he said there's nothing physically wrong with him. Which is amazing, subhanAllah, that you are dying, nothing physically is wrong with you. But you are killing yourself. Your heart is killing you. Your mind is killing you. Just like as we said, how sadness can kill some people, right? Extreme sadness can kill some people. He said that extreme love, both are emotions. Extreme love can kill some people. So he's saying, may Allah protect me from this. He said also, قال إن العشق, he says also ishq, as we have explained, he says it's excessive love. And when it really takes the heart of a person, so you're always thinking about your beloved, the one that you're obsessed about. You always remember him. You always are imagining him. He says at that time, the energy, the power, the life power that Allah had given to you would be exhausted in that. So instead of it actually serving you, it will be drained thinking about the other person and longing after that other person. And that is the thing that will kill you eventually. So it will be incurable. It can reach a stage where it can become incurable, and the person's actions, the person's attributes, the person's intentions, all of this will be out of balance, and the person will be lost because of it. كما قيل, and there are a couple of verses of poetry here that I do think are important. He said, الحب أول ما يكون لجاجة يأتي بها وتسوقه الأقدار. He says, al-hub, when it starts, it is amusing, it's cute, it's interesting. أول ما يكون لجاجة, something nice. And I'll explain. The qadar, decrees or circumstances will bring. حتى إذا خاض الفتى لجج الهوى, until when that young man, he goes into these incredible waves of desire, incredible waves of love. جاءت أمور لا تطاق كبار. He will encounter things that are so big that he cannot handle and tolerate. Meaning, love starts small, but eventually it becomes destructive. So how does it start small? A glance. Oh, that's cute. That's nice. Smile. Isn't it a smile nice? She's smiling at me. Oh, that's beautiful. She starts to smile back. A nice word, a nice text, right? Maybe meet up, right? All that is what? Lajajatun. It's a nice kind of thing. It's very entertaining. It's very exciting. But you're not thinking about what's going to come ahead. What lies ahead? You don't know. But you're just trapped in the moment. You that you want is really very cute, very interesting. But he says what? Into it, things that you cannot handle will come your way. Cute all the way like that? There are responsibility, right? Pain and sorrow. She's not texting me. Why is she not texting? It started. So just think about it before it progresses. Do you think it's going to be that cute all the way? It can't be. That's not life. He says, وَأَخِرُهُ عَطَبٌ وَقَتْلٌ. He says, and the end of it, right, is destruction and death, unless Allah Azza wa Jal saves you. You don't really progress into the forbidden areas of love. As a poet have said, وَعِشْ خَالِيَةً. He says, live free, or without that type of love, because love in the beginning is hardship, and in the beginning it's in the middle it's illness, and the end is death. Right? And again, he's not talking about every kind of love, by the way, right? I don't want to say or give the impression, by the way, don't love anybody. That's not realistic. You do want to love your wife, you do want to love your children, you want to love your friends, what have you. We're here talking about a specific strand of love, that excessive love. وقال آخر, he says, another said, تولع بالعشق حتى عشق. فلما استقل به لم يطق رأى لجة ظنها موجة فلما تمكن منها غرق. He says he was obsessed with love, meaning he wanted to love. He went after it. He fed it. تولع, right? And when you get attached to something. So he says he wanted this. He kept feeding it and growing it until he got ishq. So when he wanted to carry it, he couldn't. Right? When you go after something and you think you can take it, but when he got it, he couldn't carry it. لَأَ لُجَّةً. He saw an incredible, monstrous wave, but he thought that it was a cute little wave. But when he went there, he drowned. Right? So that's what he's saying. You do not know what you're getting yourself into. You lack experience. You're blind with love. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. And at that point, you may need the support of people around you if you will listen to advice. So ibnalqayyim is saying here, وَالذَّنْبُ لَهُ وَهُوَ الْجَانِي عَلَى نَفْسِهِ. He says it is his sin and he's the one who had done this to himself. As it is said in the proverb, يَدَاكَ أَوْكَتَ وَفُوكَ نَفَخ. It says it is your hand that have tied and your mouth blew the air in. So if you have a flotation device, right, like a water bottle or how they used to before, right, have water in a skin, in leather. But if you want it as a flotation device, what would you do? You blow air in it and you would tighten it. That will be your flotation device. So if you try, let's say, to cross a river or go on the sea with that flotation device, if it's not well made and you start drowning, and you made it, and you start drowning, the people will point to you and he said, you created this. You're drowning because of what you did. That's the proverb. يَدَاكَ أَوْكَتَ. You did this. You blew the air. You didn't do it right. You are drowning because of it. So if a person goes into this because of their own choice, it says يَدَاكَ أَوْكَتَ وَفُوكَ نَفَخ. قال, he says, وَالْعَاشِقُ لَهُ ثَلَاثُ مَقَامَاتٍ. He says, al-ashiq, the one who experiences this ishq, has 3 levels. And at least let's say, alhamdulillah, that it's levels. It doesn't hit you all at once and then kills you. No, it's progressive. So he says the beginning, middle, and end. The beginning, if he experiences the beginnings of it, he says he has to fight it as much as he can. إذا كان الوصول إلى معشوقه متعذرا قدرا أو شرعا. When it is not possible for him to be with his beloved, either religiously or by decree. Because sometimes it is by decree and sometimes religiously not. So what does it mean when you love someone and you cannot be with them religiously? When Allah Azza wa Jalla had said you cannot be with that person, whatever that thing may be. One of the easiest things you need to think of, this woman is married. Right? This woman is married. That's it. What are you going to do? So religiously you're not allowed to pursue her, right? So are you still going to keep looking at her, talking to her? She's married. Means khalas, done. Right? Done. Close that door. Yeah? Or religiously, you go to the parents, I want to marry so-and-so. No. What are you going to do? Keep going after her? Keep talking to her? That's not a proper way. You're going to agonize over this sooner or later, and she's going to be agonizing over it. And it could be catastrophic, possibly. So religiously means it's closed. Or religiously, you're attracted to someone whom you can never marry. Okay? Let's be transparent about it, right? Someone, for instance, is attracted to a sister. His sister, blood sister, let's say. Or attracted to an aunt, or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter to me. Okay? Haram. Or, as ibnalqayyim had said, a man attracted, looks at another man, he's attracted to him. What do? You don't pursue it. Haram. Done. Over. And you disconnect, whenever that's possible, disconnect from that person so that attraction will go away. You don't need now to superanalyze yourself and say, am I this? Am I that? Is there something wrong with me? Whatever. No, you don't need to. The only thing you want to what? Disassociate. Distance. And that distance will take care of that thing. You don't need to superanalyze yourself. And then, or give yourself a label. Then I must be this sexually. No. Refuse it. Reject it, fight it, and bi'idhnillah azza wa jalla, we're going to go away. Right? So he says, if it is haram, it's done. Right? Qadaran, as we've described before, qadaran, you want to be with her, but it doesn't happen. You don't have the money, the parents don't want it, etc., etc. It means that Allah did not decree it and it's not happening. Then you, again, disassociate. So when you know that something is not right, or something is not open and possible, then you stop it. So he says, if you stop it in the beginning, you'll be saved from it. So that's the beginning. قال فإن عجز عن ذلك وأبى قلبه. He says, if you cannot do this, And he's here just making exemptions in the case of. And it doesn't mean here that you should say to yourself, well, I'm going to be the exception. No, you should fight it. And he says, but if you really cannot do, فَعَلَيْهِ كِتْمَانُ ذَلِكَ. If you cannot really separate yourself from loving that person and stopping it, you have to conceal this and not divulge this to creation, and not speak and praise his beloved as in poetry or between people or in posts or what have you. Because if you do this, you potentially will combine shirk, because you could reach the level of shirk, but also dhulm, injustice. Because once you're public with your affection, and it's not a proper affection, and the other person is innocent and is not receptive and doesn't want it, but you go public with your affection and your love, you're going to be committing injustice, dhulm. Now he's going to explain why that dhulm, in addition also to the potential of shirk. قال فإن الظلم في هذه الباب. He says this is the greatest types of dhulm. And perhaps this is more harmful, that if you were to take money from your beloved, the one that you love, obsessed with, either to take their money or may take money from his family. Because when you tell people that you love so-and-so, they'll start thinking the worst about them even without proof. Right? You start spreading suspicions, right? قال وأكثر الناس يصدق في هذا الباب بأدنى شبهة. He says, and most people will believe things with the slightest hint of impropriety. Slightest hint, even there is no evidence, but the slightest possibility of improper actions, he says he will believe it. قال فإذا قيل فلان, he says with so-and-so, love so-and-so, or so-and-so, with so-and-so, he says one person, without no proof, he says one person will disbelieve it and 999 will believe it. That's gossip, right? So like if you hear something that so-and-so was involved with so-and-so, no evidence. He's just said something or just some gossip. He says people's reality is that maybe you will have one intelligent, wise person who will say there is no proof. It's haram to believe this. Haram to talk about it. One out of 1,000. And the 999 will say, yes, it is true, must have, or maybe something is there. Right? So he's saying when you go public with that, you're going to ruin that person's reputation. قال وخبر العاشق المتهتك. He says if a person talks about it, especially if he is a sinful person, an improper person, lacks morality. He says when he talks about something like that, oh, I've been with so-and-so, even that so-and-so is innocent and is not known to be a sinner, but once he talks about it, other people will rush and believe it, and will believe it as if it is reality. He says even to the extent that if by accident they'll be in the same place, but it's by accident, people will say it's a planned meeting. Right? قال وبذلك وقع أهل الإفك في الطيبة المطيبة. He says, and it's because of this reason, because of that human inclination and tendency, why some people believed the accusations against al-tayyib al-mutayyibah, the pure and the purified, the beloved of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the one who was exonerated from above 7 skies. When Safwan ibn al-Mu'attal radiyallahu anha brought her after she was left behind, he brought her and he was alone with her and she's riding on the camel. Somebody of the hypocrites saw it, and he started to spread a rumor that there is something going on between them, and it spread among some people. So he's saying, why is it that those people were willing to believe it about her? He says because of that human tendency. Was there any proof? There was no proof. But that human tendency to believe the worst about some people, salacious, anything like that, they will believe it. قال ولولا أن تولى الله براءتها والذب عنها وتكذيب قاذفها لكان أمرا آخر. Was it not that Allah Azza wa Jal himself, He's the one who exonerated her, defended her, and falsified accusations against her, it would have been a different thing. Right? So if something like this, right, could attach to itself to someone like Aisha radiallahu anha, who is in the household of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, do you think that you could be free of it? Because once it sticks, it sticks. And it's hard to clean yourself if that happens. Things of that sexual nature, once they stick, they stick. And in some people's mind, there's no evidence at all, by the way. No evidence. But once it's there, it'll always be there. He said, but here, subhanAllah, if not for Allah Azza wa Jal, who kind of just decimated that rumor, he said still people would still think that maybe something like that happened. So if that's the case there, you understand that people will believe it about anybody else, right? He says, when the intent of bringing all of this, he says that if you go public with your love and wanting to be with him or with her, etc., etc., that would be a transgression against them, a transgression against their family, and a lot of people will start to believe that. And he said, and if you actually seek somebody, a mediator, to try to persuade them or threaten them to come to you and do what you want with them, he said that is also dhulm, transgression, and diyatha. And diyatha is to be content and satisfied with sin. And he said, remember that the Prophet ﷺ la'ana al-ra'ish. He says, a Prophet ﷺ had cursed the mediator between the briber and the bribed. So giving a bribe is haram, right? It's haram. He says, if there is a mediator between them, negotiates, carries the money, isn't he assisting in that sin? So if you wanna curse the one who gives a bribe, meaning willingly, he's not forced, gives a bribe, and the one who's asking for the bribe, how about the person in the middle? Well, he's assisting in that sin. So he's saying if a person is trying to assist in fulfilling a sin, like the sin of ishq or the sin of zina, and he's in the middle or she's in the middle trying to talk to and to convince the other who is reluctant, he says, well, that is cursed as well. That is also what? That is also transgression, and you're involved in it. قال فيتساعد العاشق والديوث على ظلم المعشوق وظلم غيره ممن يتوقف حصول غرضه على ظلمه في نفس أو مال أو غرض. So he says the one who's obsessed and the one assisting it, if someone is assisting him, he says they will transgress against the one that they are obsessed with, and anyone who stands in their way and anything that stands in their way. So if you imagine that the one who's obsessed is obsessed with a woman and she's married and he's trying with her but she says, no, I'm married. He could love her or be obsessed with her so much that he could say to himself, as if I do what? Remove who? So he removes the husband. Is he will steal accusations or even he will. And he says, how many ruined and and they're good together. But because she listened to that man, she started to hate her husband and love him, and it broke up that family. So this is a major sin. This is a major sin. And included in that, of course, is any man or any woman, by the way, when you go to them, this happens more with females than it happens with males, because females are the ones that tend to share and talk about their personal problems more than males do. But for some females, for some even sisters, for some Muslim sisters, when they go, maybe well-intentioned, they go and they complain about things that their husband is doing. He doesn't give me this, he does this, he does that. The advice that that woman would give or that sister would say is divorce him. Leave him. Call the police. Whatever. Like, do the worst. Okay? Maybe it's coming out of her own experience that was miserable, and so that this is what the advice, maybe sincerely, giving that advice because she's gone through hell and this is what she's doing. And for others, they just are toxic that way. So if you're going to ruin a relationship like that and a marriage like that, understand what you're doing, because there's a curse that is waiting for someone who breaks up a marriage irresponsibly like this. Okay? So, and he says, and if the Prophet ﷺ, and if he had forbidden that a person would propose to a woman that has already been engaged, or to buy or haggle with something that has already been sold. Prophet ﷺ had forbidden all of that. How could a person go and separate between a man and his wife so that he be with her? So what he's talking here about is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that said that don't propose to a woman that is engaged. لا يخطب الرجل على خطبة أخيه. So if the woman is not engaged yet, she did not say yes, somebody is proposing, you have still a chance. There's a window. There's a window. She didn't say yes. If she says yes to the engagement, then you can't anymore. You're done. It's closed. Until she lets go of that man. So لا يخطب الرجل على خطبة أخيه. So why do you think? What's going to happen if she says yes to the second one after she has said yes to the first? There's going to be what? Anger and hostility. Right? How dare you come, like we already have agreed, almost agreed, right? Technically I'm married to her, right? And you've come and you've taken her away from me. What do you think he's going to do to the other person? Yeah, they're going to clash, they're going to fight, he can kill him. So that's the case. So there's a lot of hostility and anger that will be generated. This is the same thing, by the way, when buying and selling. Right? It's not like both of you are still negotiating and the seller has not decided. But no, when the seller has decided, you go to him and you say, I'll give you 50. The person sitting next to said, maybe I'll give you 40, maybe I'll give you 60. We're still talking. Fine. But if the seller had agreed with you, that's it. Even if you haven't given him the money yet, but agreed, that's it. He cannot swoop in and say, no, I'll give you more. Again, hostilities. Right? And also it's indecent, isn't it? Like it's just indecent. We've just agreed and then you want to come and take it from me. So just imagine the anger that a person would feel. So he says, if that's the case with selling anything, right, and an engagement to a woman that you're not still married to, what do you think is the ruling about someone who comes to a family, to your wife, and he takes her away from you? Or takes the husband away by saying, you got to divorce this woman for you to marry me. Right? And that is also forbidden. Okay. قال ولا يسقط حق الغير بالتوبة من الفاحشة. He says, and the right of another, if you violate somebody's right, like the husband, right, like the father, like, and some people don't think about this, right, and he's going to be talking about it here. Now, I'll mention it, and then when he talks about it, I'll repeat it. Some people will turn the daughter against her father, right? And you don't understand the relationship between them. You don't understand how she's everything to him. No, I don't deny the fact that, yeah, some parents are unjust. Okay, fine. Like there is a father, and you know, there are cases of this where a father would continuously say no to this person, no to this person, not without just cause. And he'd be doing his daughter great injustice. Right? But you have to be careful before you decide that that's the case. Because again, this is all an emotional topic. So if you're in it, you may not see the whole story. But there are some people, right, unjustly, they turn the daughter against the father, just like they turn the wife against the husband. And she starts hating the father. She runs away from her house. She marries without the knowledge of the father or his consent. All these are problematic, especially when the father is in the right. So you don't realize the injustice that you're creating, all in the name of love. I broke up a family, I broke up this woman's marriage, I broke up the relationship that she has with her father, with her mother, with all of her family, and I just took her out and she's alone right now. You don't realize what you're doing. There is an element of injustice. So love doesn't justify anything and everything. So it's saying that the right of another that you have wronged, it doesn't just simply go away simply because you repented. So he says, yes, if you commit a mistake between you and Allah Azza wa Jal, and also part of it is between you and other people, when you repent, it drops what is between you and Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah forgives it. But what is between you and other people, that will continue till the day of judgment or until they forgive you. So either they forgive you or on the day of judgment. قال فإن ظلم الوالد بإفساد ولده وفلذة كبده وما هو أعز عليه من نفسه ظلم كبير. He says, when you transgress against the father or the mother by ruining their kid for them, the apple of their eye, and the thing that they hold dearest in this world, is a great injustice. There's no other greater injustice than that. In fact, you could take their money away, it would be a lesser evil to them than taking their child away from them. Because this is the thing that they love the most, and you're taking it away from them. Okay? قال فظلم الزوج, also when you transgress against the husband by taking the ones that he loves, his wife, is a great injustice, more than his money. He could tolerate losing that money more than tolerate losing his wife. قال فإن كان ذلك حقا لغاز في سبيل الله. He says, if this has happened with someone who is a mujahid on an expedition, fighting in the cause of Allah Azza wa Jal, and you ruin his wife and you turn his wife against him, the Prophet ﷺ said that on the day of judgment, Allah will say to that mujahid who had been wronged by this person, by this man, he said, خُذْ مِنْ حَسَنَاتِهِ مَا شِئْتَ. Take as many of his good deeds as you want. Because he betrayed them in his wife, with his wife, right? Do you understand? Like this man who's married, and he goes to defend Muslims and fight on their behalf somewhere else and leaves his wife behind. Another man comes indecent and betrays him with that woman. So that's the greatest betrayal. Not only that she's married, but he betrayed someone like that. So on the day of judgment, he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, this man who had been betrayed, Allah will say, you know the one who betrayed you? Take from his good deeds as many as you want. قال رسول الله عليه وسلم, he said, فَمَا ظَنُّكُمْ? He said, the Prophet says, what do you think he's going to leave? And at a time like today, right? You need money? Anybody who doesn't need money? We need money. If I tell you this person, imagine that we don't really have to sympathize, right? But you really need money. I tell, take as many dollars from him as you want. Would you leave anything? I'll take anything, zero. I'll zero his account. But what is you're gonna need hasanat more than you need money in this world. What are you gonna do? Just take all of it. And if he runs out, what happens? You take your bad deeds and you give it to him, right? قال فإذا انضاف إلى ذلك. He says, and if that man that you betrayed is your neighbor or is your kin, he says that is even a greater injustice. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says, the one who severs the ties of kin will not enter heaven, and the one who will not be secure from his neighbors, or his neighbor does not feel secure of his harm, will not enter heaven. Something like that. So he says, if he's your neighbor and you betray him like that, it's even a bigger sin. If he is your kin and you betray him, that is even a bigger sin. قال فإن استعان العاشق على وصال معشوقه بشياطين من الجن إما بسحر أو استخدام ضم إلى الشرك والظلم كفر السحر. He says, but if he also seeks or solicits the help of the devils from the jinn by using magic or by using them, he will add to the shirk and dhulm, the ones that we talked about, the disbelief of magic. So here ibnalqayyim rahimahullah is calling magic disbelief. Right? He's calling kufr sihr, he's calling magic disbelief. And he said elsewhere, that is the case, wallahu a'lam, because most of the time, often, you will not be able to have the jinn do whatever you want them to do except by committing some sort of shirk and kufr in Allah Azza wa Jal. Because what do they want from you? Right? And he says here, by the way, so that I can tie this to that. He says, if you seek the help of the shayateen, either with magic or by using them. So you either will learn magic or go to a magician, right? And they will be the ones who are executing that magic. Or istikhdam. Istikhdam is using them. This is not necessarily magic, but I'll do this for you if you do that to me, for me. I'll do that for you if you do that for me. So a person may think, if he is using the jinn right now like that, that he or she is in control. But who's the one who's really in control? The jinn. You're not in control. Even though they are doing your bidding, what you want from them. But they're doing it because you're doing something for them. He says, okay, we'll do this if you want. You want us to kidnap so-and-so? Done. You want us to steal this? Done. You want us to frighten and scare this person? Done. You want us to? Done. If it's in the sense of magic, you want us magic against this person, done. But you give us something. So what is the thing that they want from you, really? Shirk and kufr. That's what they want to lead you. So that's why he called it kufr and sihr. So you think that you're in control. No, they are in control. As long as they want this from you. Now, when they don't need you, you'll find that they'll start harassing you, going after you, threatening you, and even killing you. Because you have no power. You give up all your power. You had the power when you were a believer. When you had the Quran, you have the power over them. They could not come close. You could burn them. By reading the Quran, they have to run away. Otherwise, they'll be burned. So then you had the power. When you become a kafir or a mushrik, and they do what you want, they have the power. And they'll come after you. Right? Just like a gang. Right? You think in the beginning it's sweet and it's good and they will help you and they're with you. No. They're doing it because they need you. And when they don't need you anymore, they kill you. That's it. Right? So you're not their friend. And subhanAllah, just consider that he's not talking about a hypothetical here. Yani using magic. Huh? The people till today here, right? They will go to people or they will contact people overseas, but you have some here. And they'll say, I want so-and-so to love me. I want him to hate his wife. I want this and this. You pay some money. And they think, and sometimes it's like disguised, or no, I went to a sheikh or I went to a alim, and subhanAllah. It doesn't exempt you from the fact that you're using magic, and this is kufr in Allah Azza wa Jal, right? And he says, even if he does not do it himself, like he's not the one, he's not the magician, but he's content with it, pleased with it, كَانَ رَاضِيًا بِالْكُفْرِ, he's be pleased with disbelief. If you go to someone and you ask him to do it, he says, I'm not the one who's doing it. Yeah, but he's doing it on your behalf. You're happy with it. You're being pleased with disbelief. You don't hate it. وَهَذَا لَيْسَ بِبَعِيدٍ عَلَى الْكُفْرِ. And if that's the case, you're not really very far from disbelief. You see how close you came to it? You went to it willingly, right? So he's saying that eventually that could kind of trap you into disbelief. So he's saying, what we want to say is that this al-maqsood at-ta'awan, meaning assisting others in these objectives, is ithmun wa udwan, sin and transgression. Now, he says, وَأَمَا مَا يَقْتَرِنُ, he says also, both of them, the obsessed and the one who's obsessed with, both of them also can commit forms of injustice. He says, because if someone recognizes that someone loves him so much and is crazy in love with them, then they will start requesting things from them and dictating what they want them to do, and the other person will do these things for them, and they will have this evil relationship between them, where if you really love me, do this for me. If you really love me, give me that. If you really love me, promote me. If you really love me, give me money. And the other person will do all of that for them. And he says it's both of them, because of this imbalance in that relationship, will commit that great injustice, because a person wants anything to just satisfy that person, and the other person knows that I have power, so I'll use it to get what I want from him. Even if it ends up destroying him, I will use that power. Now, قال فكل منهما يعين الآخر على أغراضه. Each one of them assists the other in whatever he wants, even though there is injustice in it. So because of that complicity, because of that sin that they are involved in, the injustice that they commit will mushroom. It's not limited. It will keep growing and growing and growing. حتى ربما يسعى له في منصب لا يليق به. He says maybe even he will appoint him to a position that does not fit him, give him money that is not halal for him, and maybe help him against others. And if his beloved, the one he's obsessed with, fights with another, he's always on the side of the one that he loves, against the one that he does not know. Now, قال كل هذه الآفات وأضعافها وأضعاف أضعافها تنشأ من عشق الصور وتحمل على الكفر الصريح. It says all of these harms are generated by that type of obsessive love. قال وقد تنصر جماعة ممن نشأوا في الإسلام بسبب العشق. We mentioned this story before. He said there are some people who grew up as Muslims, they apostated and they became Christians because of ishq, because of that love. And we kind of went through that story before. He says, kind of summarizes it, as it happened to some of the people who would give the one person who was giving the adhan in the masjid, and he witnessed a very beautiful woman on the roof. He was infatuated by what he had saw, so he went down and he asked her about herself, who is she? And she said, I am Christian and my father will never let me marry somebody like you who is a Muslim unless you leave Islam and you become a Christian. He did, and then in the same day he went back up the roof again, he slipped and he fell and he died. So he died without getting her, without marrying her, without being with her, and he died also as a Christian. He says, what's the reason behind it? He said it was ishq. قال وإذا أراد النصارى, and this is an interesting piece of history. He says, and if the Christians want to that a Muslim captive would become Christian, so if there were wars between Muslims and Christians, right? So if they capture a Muslim, so if they want him to become Christian, they will show him a beautiful woman, and they would ask her that she would say that I am in love with you, I'm attracted to you, etc., etc. But I want from you is, because I cannot be with you otherwise, to be Christian. And if he loves her, then he will apostate and he will become a Christian. And he says at that moment, with that fitna, يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. It is then that a person will need the stabilization and the support of Allah Azza wa Jal. As Allah has said, Allah will stabilize and support those with the stable saying in the hayat, in the worldly life, and in the akhirah, because it's a great fitna. They will show him something, especially that he's in distress, he's a captive, he doesn't know if he can come out. He may have been promised death, and he sees this beautiful woman. She keeps talking to him until he's attached. And once he's attached, he says, I love you and you must love me. We can't be together unless you are Christian. And so he becomes Christian because of it. He says that is a tactic that they use. Right? And by the way, that is a tactic that is used by intelligence services till today. Right? So if they want to grab someone, whether he knows it or not, if they want to recruit someone or plant someone around him, if they want to recruit him, have him fall in love with this woman. And then this woman recruits him. And he becomes an agent. Why? Because he loved her. Like he will renege on, forget his past, his loyalty, everything, and becomes a spy or an agent just because of her. So this is real, right? This is real. Or they plant her. That is, if I can't persuade him to change, I'll plant her. So she falls in love with him, he falls in love with her, she marries him, and she's the agent around him, right? So again, a person must also think to themselves, okay, that if this is a possibility, you have to protect yourself from that as a possibility, right? And okay, I'm gonna briefly, inshallah, say this and then leave some time for questions. So he said, each one of them will transgress against the other, and ishq has all of these types of transgression, and also the object of obsession. Okay, he says one form of injustice that they commit is that when they know that somebody is madly in love with them, and they keep the hope of love alive, even though they know it's not real, but they sweet talk and they beautify themselves and they promise them, either because they're enjoying it, or either because it gives them power, or either because they're bored and they want something to do, whatever it is, or they want something from them. He says, this person is madly in love with you, and that is killing him, and you're keeping the flames of that love alive. You are playing with his soul. Eventually you are going to kill him like that. So you have also to fear Allah Azza wa Jal when committing that form of injustice, because you're responsible for the life of that person if he dies like that. And he says eventually how much ishq has killed on both sides, and how many ni'mas it had evaporated, and how many position it has squandered. So all of this has happened because of these transgressions and indiscretions of loving someone inappropriately and not knowing when to stop and how to treat it. So we'll stop here, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal, give you some time for questions, if you have any, inshallah. So a question here is, what if someone proposed, and if someone we proposed to rejected us, and we held on to wanting them even 4 years later, how to accept qadar? Now 4 years later is a long time to keep holding on to the hope that somehow you're going to get back to this person, especially after them rejecting you. Again, always ask Allah Azza wa Jal for that support. Ya Allah Azza wa Jal, help me forget them. Help me forget them. So constant dua. Okay? Second of all, don't stay close to them. Yeah, don't follow them on social media. Right? When you find yourself thinking about them, distract yourself, move yourself away from it. Occupy yourself with doing something useful so that you're not just simply sitting there open to the invitations of thoughts and whispers about that person. So think about something better, do something better, so that you are occupied, you're not empty. You understand what I'm saying? You're not just empty, entertaining ideas or fantasies. Also, seek another person. Propose to another person. Marry another person. Because it could be the possibility that because you're empty, or you're feeling that emptiness of not having someone to love and be next to, that you're always thinking about the other person that had escaped. But if you have somebody and you focus on, and this is really important, you have to give up on the idea of that I'm going to be with that person one day, or think about it. Because if you do this, you'll never be satisfied with what you have at the moment. Right? Now, if you're eating a meal and it's an incredible good meal, but you're thinking about another meal, you're not going to enjoy this one. Right? Why? Because the appetite, the interest is not there. But if you just kind of dismiss all these other thoughts and you just focus on what you're eating at that moment, the smell, the taste, the texture, then you will appreciate it. So dismiss it, that this was what? Something that could have happened, but it did not happen. And then also think to yourself, if we say that this is qadar, why did Allah Azza wa Jal dismiss it? Isn't it better for you? Why would you want worse things for yourself? Allah Azza wa Jal knows what is best for you, so He dismissed it. Wanting it would be going against Allah. So why do you want that? And imagine and then tell yourself, if I married them, maybe I would have divorced them already. Right? But how many people think that they're madly in love, they marry and then they divorce? If I married them, maybe I would be in the courts right now. If I married them, maybe I'd be in jail right now. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah that it's not it. Focus on what you have. And Allah will change your heart, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal. So I think all of these things will help, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal. Okay. تفضل يا. نعم. نعم إذا أشار عليه وهو يعلم أنه هذا ساحر وأرشد إليه كأنه راضي به. نعم. نعم. Just the one who is satisfied with disbelief is a disbeliever. Like you're happy with that disbelief. Because no Muslim, no matter how bad you are, right? You may like some sins. But if somebody tells you Allah hates this, part of you will say, yeah, I shouldn't like it. And there are some, especially when it is kufr in Allah Azza wa Jalla, no matter how bad you are, if you see somebody prostrating to an idol, you say, hooray, good. You never say this. Because your tawheed goes against it. Your love for Allah Azza wa Jalla goes against it. So if there's disbelief and someone tells you, because sometimes you could make a mistake, you don't know, fine. If somebody tells you this is kufr in Allah, Allah hates it the most, and you're still happy with it? No. So that's a problem. خير إن شاء الله. تفضل. وياك. So is the advice is for the parents or for the youth? Both. So it says if you're living in a promiscuous kind of ishq inclined cultures, global culture, the way it's global, before it wasn't that global. It's just to different degrees, but it's just like that. Even the East is just, so by the East I mean yani non-Muslim East. It's just this is thing. So he says, well, how do you deal with it? What advice would you give as well for parents and for the youth? Of course, it's a dual responsibility. It's not like the kids should say, or the youth should say, well, my parents did or didn't do. Well, where's your role as well, right? So for parents, you need to be really careful with the devices, phones, with social media, with movies, entertainment, with music. And for you to say no to these things, you have to give alternatives. So what is the alternative? The alternative is to build a structure that is different than that, to emphasize more physical activities, physical relationships, hobbies, things that you do with your own hand, seeking knowledge, whatever it is. And some people who have done very well did it because they were homeschooling their children. And not only homeschooling their children, but they're on top of it. Like they really know what they're doing. And you could see the difference between someone whom his parents are taking care of versus someone who's not. You could see it in their intelligence and how sharp they are and how much they know and in their focus in life in general, right? So what I would say is the parents need kind of to get ahead of all of this by knowing what is out there and by stopping it. And also by trying to breed as much iman in their children as possible, so the child does not need to go after those beautiful images, to feel fulfilled when somebody says to her hi or says to him hi, that there's something more in their lives that is going, that stabilizes them. So for that, they need to have a healthy, good relationship with the parents. You need to talk to them. You need kind of to discuss these things with them. You're going to find this outside. You're going to find this outside. You're going to hear this. Get ready for it. If you have any problem, come and talk to me about it. I'll find a solution, inshallah, because we're on the same team, not opposite teams. So if you build up their iman and they have these alternatives, they'll be less and less likely, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal, to be infected by this thing. And, whenever, if possible, trips and extended stays in Muslim countries so that they could see a different type of living. I don't mean that necessarily you can't migrate. I don't mean migrate, but I say some time that you spend with them over there, it's because they could see something very different, and that will influence them, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal. For the youth, right, when you realize that that is a problem, you have to kind of absorb all these Islamic manners and how to deal with the opposite sex, what to do when you see a forbidden picture, how to love Allah Azza wa Jal more. So again, you have to do your part as well. So you don't surrender yourself to social media, to beautiful images, whether you see them inside the house, outside the house, in the school, outside in the street. You lower your gaze, you look the other way, and remind yourself of why you're doing this, and then engage yourself in things that will increase your iman. So learn the Quran and learn it with meaning, learn the hadith and learn it with meaning. Practice Islam, build up your practice. And keep asking Allah Azza wa Jal for support, asking Allah Azza wa Jal for protection. This is what comes to mind, bi'idhnillah Azza wa Jal. And of course, right, early marriage. Marry early, right? Marry early. And don't put a lot of, conditions that complicate marriage for your daughter, for your son, for yourself. Don't do these things. Marry, and hopefully, bi'idhnillah Azza wa Jal, that protects you. Bi'idhnillah Azza wa Jal. Okay. So, maybe just one more, if it's... So how do we inform ourselves of aspects of jahiliyyah that will aid us in solidifying our practice of the deen while protecting ourselves from its evil and dangers? So a couple of points, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal. Don't pursue or be educated about a jahiliyyah that is tempting to you. So for instance, if you have problem with music, don't follow the kind of the news of musicians and what they're doing and the latest single and the latest album and how the latest album is doing. Because that is going to drag you back into what? That world. So you know about it, but if you follow it that closely, that's going to take you there. If you have an addiction to sports, don't follow this, I don't know, the latest score and the latest transfer and the latest this and the latest star. Don't follow that, because it's going to suck you back into it. So you have to have a distance of neutrality, right? Where you don't care that much about it, that you're going to be sucked back into it. That's one thing. Second, I mean, just remind yourself of why you're doing it and let it be academic, right? It's not desire. So you study it academically, study it in a scholarly sense. So what is the problem with this? What is the problem with that? Study and listen to others who are talking about it. There's others who have studied it. You may not need to do all the research yourself, but you'll be informed enough for you to, when you want to speak, you'll say, oh, this is a practice from this religion. This is a practice from that religion. This is a practice from this culture that is contrary to Islam. You will know because you've noticed it and you studied it. And then you have informed others about it. So that's what comes to mind. And then when you find yourself being too affected by it, stop. Just retreat. Khalas, you've known enough. You don't want too much of it because you don't want it to corrupt you. Wallahu a'lam. Khalas, inshallah. So I probably will stop here and we'll see you bi'idhnillah azza wa jal next week at the same time. Subhanak Allahumma bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.